Good morning. My name is Cindy Walton, and I am the worship associate this morning and part of the team that is working to stream this service to you, wherever you may be. We're an inclusive congregation that welcomes you as you are, including all of your identities, complexities, and situations. We welcome your whole self, even if it isn't fully assembled, because we recognize that we are all a work in progress and we are all in this together. This service is being posted on our YouTube page so that folks can watch it again later. Please feel free to share it with your friends. Love is the doctrine of this church, and the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, for these high purposes do we unite in worship.
The chalice lighting words are from the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, member of the Commission for Institutional Change. Though you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again come. These words of Rumi speak to the welcome that is at the heart of Unitarian Universalism. We seek to be a home for all who desire our company. We seek to make a difference for all those in search of our good news. Come, come, little children, teens, young adults, adults and elders. Come, families in great diversity. Come to this loving home and safe harbor, but not to find a place to escape the world. This is a community engaged and of creativity. We come together to create boldly, dangerously. We must create the beloved community with an awareness of how difficult it is, because it is hard work. It is work that challenges us to bring our whole selves and engage deeply and for the long haul. Our faith, our tradition must call us into community. Our task is to create spaces where we might know and value each other. I am here, like each of you, offering my life story as a gift to Unitarian Universalism, as a gift to you. I offer my story as an African American woman, as a mother of children of color, as a Unitarian Universalist religious educator. We all have experiences of grief, pain, and conflict that have separated us. We all need to be reconciled with something or someone. Here, in our faith, we try to forgive when forgiveness is possible. Our ears open to hear each other's voices. Our eyes ready to see each other clearly. Our hearts enlarged to hold each other's pain and joy. Our arms entwined in embrace as we journey. Don't give up. Don't stop listening to one another. We light our chalice in the name of love, of hearing, of reconciling, and of community. Ashe and amen.
Good morning. This is a time for all ages, not just our children, so I encourage you all to gather around. As you may have heard, there's a pretty important election going on this weekend. All over social media, people are sharing facts as well as opinions, which is both a good and bad thing. Good because people feel as though they can speak out against unfair, unjust things, but bad because it's creating a black and white situation for us. For example, my candidate will only bring good, while your candidate will only bring bad. I know, that's overly simplistic, but stay with me. Black and white thinking is a defense mechanism that serves to keep us feeling safe, which is not always a bad thing. The problem with that type of thinking is that it's not true or helpful to us as individuals or as a society. You know, I've been thinking a lot about the metta meditation that Nell leads us through every month. You know, the one where we wish good things upon those that we are not in right relation with. as well as our first principle, the idea that every person has inherent worth and dignity, regardless of how I feel about them. Let's let that sink in. Even the people that I don't agree with or I don't like have inherent worth and dignity. They have some redeeming quality that people in their lives are drawn to that allows them to have meaningful relationships. What are those for the people you support? What are those for the people you do not support? By challenging our thinking in this way, we are not ignoring the negatives of a person, nor are we excusing the illegal and immoral things that they do. Instead, we are allowing ourselves to feel in a more true and helpful manner, which ultimately makes us a more whole being. It allows us to be more informed about our decisions and ask more meaningful questions about ourselves and the world around us. So, as you go about your day, I encourage you to find out what draws people to the candidates that you support. What draws people to the candidates you do not support? You might be surprised at what you discover. Thank you.
Here is a basic definition of white supremacy culture. The all-encompassing assumed superiority of people defined and perceived as white and the practices based upon this assumption. It does not refer to individuals, but to an overarching political, economic, and social system of domination. And this definition comes from the book White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. This week we're going to talk about objectivity. White supremacy culture holds that the belief that there is such a thing as being objective. It also holds a belief that emotions are inherently destructive, irrational, and should not play a role in the decision-making or group process. This results in invalidating people who show emotion. This also results in requiring people to think in a linear fashion and ignoring or invalidating those who think in other ways. In this situation, people will exhibit impatience with anything that does not appear logical to those with power. Here are some anecdotes to objectivity. We can realize that everyone has a worldview and everybody's worldview affects the way they understand things. We can realize that means you too. It means me too. We can push ourselves to sit with discomfort when people are expressing themselves in ways which are not familiar to us. Finally, we can assume that everybody has a valid point and our job is to understand what that point is. This concludes this week's moment of anti-racism.
At this time in our service, we recognize the joys and concerns of the community. We're pleased to have several candles of healing and hope for members who are recovering from COVID-19. These include Sharon Baker, Chase and George Peterson, and soon we hope to be able to report that Mike and Christy Fuller, who've just been diagnosed, will be feeling better as well. We also have a candle of love and concern for Sharon's grandson, Quade Carlton, who has begun a long journey. And as we wait and wait for the final results of the momentous election that took place on Tuesday and is continuing to take place. Here is a candle for hope and healing for our country. And one final candle for all those hopes and fears and concerns deeply felt but not spoken this morning.
Is it running? What a beautiful thought I am thinking concerning a great speckled bird. Her name should be spoken forever with kindness and reverent word. How often men gather round her, falsely they heckle and call. The great speckled bird stands there proudly, a shining example for all. All the others are working against her. They envy her inside and her pain. They hate her because she is certain of love's everlasting refrain, desiring to lower her standard. They watch every move that she makes. They long to find fault with her teaching, but really they find no mistake. She's spreading her wings for a journey. She's going to leave by and by, when the trumpet shall sound in the morning. She'll rise and go up into the sky.
And others targeted and endangered in this world come into our congregation seeking solace, only to discover that while our beliefs are grounded and life-giving, the ways they are practiced in too many of our communities cause harm, confusion, and pain. I said that twice. We could overlook the special gifts and intelligences of people who already know how to resist and survive in these times when these skills are needed more and more. The second reading is from the novel by Edward P. Jones titled The Known World. It was Timothy, then 12 years old, who was at his mother's side when she opened the box from Augustus Townsend. "Don't send me back," Rita said in the darkness as each nail was pried loose and the top of the box was gradually separated from the body of the box and the feeble light Little by little light began to seep in on her. Each nail Mary pried loose made such an awful noise to Rita, awful and as loud as the coming of an army. As the light came in, Rita began to feel ashamed because of her waist. A 7-hour stretch out of Baltimore had her lying on her stomach because the handlers ignored the Manchester shipping agent's words marked in black paint on the top. This side up with extreme care. Mary gave no expression when she heard and then saw the black woman through the good opening. Slowly, Rita opened her eyes and saw Mary. "Don't send me back." Ashe and amen.
I came down to the river to pray. Let's take a moment to follow our breath into those places we might have rushed past all week. With each breath, I invite you to go deeper and find that part of your own center that needs attention. Breathing in, breathing out. Spirit of love and life, accept me into this moment so that I might more readily accept all that is this moment, all of the uncertainty, all of the incompleteness, all of the conflicting truths, and all of the beauty that is the jazz of this moment. For that is what this moment is, a jazz of noise and silence. Attempting, falling short, restarting with adjustments, and falling short more gracefully each time until grace happens, like it does with each breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Blessed be. Amen.
We're very pleased this morning to welcome a guest minister to our pulpit. We are honored to have the Reverend Xolani Kacela, who serves as minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Before that, he served UU congregations in Durham, North Carolina, and Dallas, Texas. He has worked as a hospice chaplain for many years prior to his parish ministry. He is a proud member of the National Guard, where he has served as a chaplain in many places. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Xolani Kacela.
Well, good morning. It's great to be with you, great UUs in Amarillo, Texas, this morning. I am Kacela, the minister of the UU Church of Las Cruces, New Mexico. And it is my delight to serve collegially with my great colleague, Nell, and to be with you and to bring a word of hope and inspiration, hopefully, in today's message. I speak today from the Widening the Circle of Concern, the report by the UUA Commission on Institutional Change that was commissioned about 3 years ago at General Assembly in response to a earthquake of sorts in the Unitarian Universalist Association. Our top 3 senior-most leaders resigned, including the president of the UUA, Reverend Peter Morales. Following that turnover, there was a great awakening that within our movement, there was a prevailing white supremacy culture that was affecting how we do our work and conduct our mission in the world. The report came as a result of this, and it followed 3 years of work by the commission. I want to start by giving a shout out to the Reverend Leslie Takahashi, who chaired the Commission on Institutional Change, for her leadership and for her persistence. It didn't take me long to realize that there is no way I can do justice to the UUA Commission on Institutional Change's report, Widening the Circle of Concern. There's too much content, history, recommendations, and calls to action to discuss and raise consciousness. Consider this one among many sermons that need to be preached in order to do that report the justice that it deserves. You can find the full report on the website at my church, the UUCLC, at uuchurchlc.org. It's under the tab Current Crisis, and I encourage you to read it. It may be on your website or you may have a copy already. Either way, please read this report. You may have asked, what does Edward P. Jones' Pulitzer Prize winning book, The Known World, have to do with me? The passage describes the end journey of an enslaved Black woman named Rita, who got shipped to Baltimore in a wooden box during slavery. A Black man shipped her to a white woman to prevent her killing in Richmond, Virginia. When the box arrived, the woman and her 12-year-old son stood there speechless as they opened it. The first words from the enslaved woman's mouth were, "Don't send me back." For many Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, also known as BIPOCs in the Unitarian Universalist world, being sent back lives in our DNA. As Resmaa Menakem declared in his book, My Grandmother's Hands, race trauma is in our bodies. We thought we had gotten past overt racism with the Civil Rights Bill, then with the hundreds of firsts by BIPOCs, whether that be the first Black Chief of Staff of the Joint Chiefs and the Department of Defense, Colin Powell, or Mae Jemison, the first Black woman astronaut. The list goes on and on. We really thought we'd move forward when we elected Obama. As Ta-Nehisi Coates' book declared, we were 8 years in power. Then Hillary Clinton lost. Now we are in a pandemic, which has caused a recession. We all know that when white America is in a recession, BIPOCs are in a depression. BIPOCs are not going back to pre-Obama days. At the headquarters level of the UUA, this is a golden age of racial equity. There's more shared leadership with BIPOCs than ever before. In congregations, however, serious work awaits us. Black, Indigenous people, and people of color join our churches, hoping we take seriously the first principle that all people have inherent worth. We, I consider myself one of them, join our churches expecting UUs are already living out that principle, only to discover in many churches they are only words. The words mean little, and often people have no competency living them out. Instead, the BIPOCs experience microaggression after microaggression by white people who have the faintest idea what they do. A microaggression is a comment or behavior that others, that is a verb, or demean someone because of their culturally marginalized identity. Here are a couple common microaggressions from UU spaces taken from the report. Where are you really from? You must be new to Unitarian Universalism. This is the one that my wife frequently gets. On page 58 of the report, there is a printable PDF with guidelines for stopping harm and responding to microaggressions. We can root American history in race. It includes depending on enslaved Black people, the genocide of Native Americans, ending Reconstruction, Jim Crow segregation, KKK terror, Dr. King's death, Emmett Till's murder, the hatred of Barack Obama, and on down to this moment started by George Floyd's death. Now, we are witnessing the Breonna Taylor case playing out. All of this history unravels in the current unrest. You may wonder, how is the passage from the known world related? There's a direct link between the known world, written in 2003, and Widening the Circle of Concern, written just this year in June. On pages 122 to 124, you'll find a detailed history from First Parish UU in Needham, Massachusetts. The historical papers tell us how they built and maintained First Parish with enslaved labor, how the first two ministers, Reverends Jonathan Townsend and Samuel West, baptized enslaved Black children on August 19, 1775, and how they maintained its upkeep by an enslaved Black sexton. The words are chilling to read. Here's a passage. On June 5, 1754, the Reverend Mr. Townsend was granted £1, 1 shilling 4 pence for his servants taking care of the meeting house in 1753. This was probably the Homer who died April 9, 1754. I lift this history from the report as evidence that white supremacy culture within the UUA has roots within our churches. It's our history. It is a fact, not fantasy. This is the living tradition we must accept exists and survives today. We inherited this legacy through our theological DNA. It is a legacy many will deny exists or has current day relevance. It has everything to do with the current day within our churches and our denomination. Our ancestors, both Black and white, passed it down to us. The Commission's report is full of examples of how white supremacy culture in contemporary UUism continues to impact BIPOCs in our movement. Read the letters from the avatars. First Parish UU of Needham, Massachusetts legacy has a direct line to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amarillo and the other 879 UU congregations. The report says much has not changed over the decades in UUism. The enslaved woman's words, "Don't send me back," are my words. They are the words of all Black, Indigenous people, and people of color in our congregations who don't want to go back to the pre-Obama era. BIPOCs continue facing the same treatment disguised in microaggressions. As a minister, I have experienced my share of micro and macroaggressions against me. I don't need to detail them here, but they were real. And you will be able to read about them in my upcoming book titled The Black UU Lives Survival Guide. I and many Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color have had the enslaved readers in the wooden box experience as our own. This doesn't mean that I felt enslaved. It means that I and other BOPOCs in our churches had similar experiences, whether or not they have spoken about them. They lay face down in a metaphorical box filled with waste, and hearing the nails pulled from the wooden box was like the sounds of an oncoming army in their minds and bodies. When they say, "Don't send me back," in whatever words they use, They meet Mary and Timothy's blank stare, which conveys the meaning, "What are you talking about?" I'm not portraying this legacy from our spiritual ancestors as a battle axe or instrument meant to cause pain, but I want us to examine and grieve our past, invite UUs to acknowledge and claim it, but not get stuck in it. UU BIPOCs need you to acknowledge the benefits that white supremacy culture conveys to white UUs. The report calls UUs to find ways to, quote, make room for repentance and saying when we have failed, end quote. Black and brown people in our midst. This is paramount if UUs want to move forward and work off white supremacy in our UU culture. If you cannot do this confessional work, you are erecting barriers for becoming multiculturally competent. I speak of the confession similar to Alcoholics Anonymous, where speakers stand up and say, "My name is so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic." That confession marks accepting responsibility for their lives, committing to truth, and becoming someone new. It's unlikely you will stop bias against Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color without confessing your part in it. That is, unless you are like my father. He was an alcoholic and early anti-racist, but had willpower to quit drinking cold turkey. He didn't understand people who needed AA. And my mother, of course, swore he quit because his doctor told him he was going to die. Whatever the impulse, confession is an important part of the work, or else we'll live in a culture of denial that relieves folks of accountability and empowers them to refute their words and actions that caused hurt. You could instead take a page from the AA Big Book and, quote, make a direct amends to people you've caused harm wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Widening the circle of concern argues white people must stop, quote, overlooking the special gifts and intelligences of people who already know how to resist and survive in these times, end quote. Without that change, folks remain blind to the harms caused to BIPOCs. In 1989, a report titled "We Have No Problem Again" from the Black Concerns Working Group included the following words, and this also is in the current report: that the white majority refusal to acknowledge and accept the first-hand knowledge of people of color, indigenous, and other marginalized groups faced within our frames is maddening to those who experienced it over and over among us. We can write that same report today, 30 years later, with the same veracity. Well, I must keep this sermon real, or as we say, keep it 100. There are actions that can happen here. There are several on page 47, which I invite you to read at your leisure. But these are mine. You can request a white supremacy teach-in from congregational consultants. You can conduct a church-wide racism audit or do a multiculturalism audit as proposed on page 53. You can get to know your fellow UUs of color. I mean, really get to know them. How do you know if you know them? Well, can you talk to them as you do to your white friends? If you can't, there's work to do. Do you invite them to your house or try to spend time together? If not, there's friendship and hospitality to extend and to do. I can say that I've written letters and emails to people in my congregation and invited them to get to know me and my wife, Tamara. 8 of 10 of those were shut down or went unanswered. That, my friends, is what we call a microaggression. I remain convinced that people should request a personal consultation and do the individual or intercultural developmental inventory, or IDI. We did that in my congregation, and it gives you a report on how you measure up in terms of multicultural competency. It gives the score for the whole congregation, all those who took it as a whole, but you can request your individual results. I believe that will keep you 100. We need more ways to center BIPOC leadership. That means making Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color leaders experience primary, and don't shut it down. Finally, stay at the table and stop the fragility. As the UU religious educator, the Reverend Dr. Natalie Fenimore, wrote in the report, while Unitarian Universalism or Unitarian Universalists value democracy, it is best not seen as democracy in the purely political sense. That is, it is not about winning by vote alone, but rather by honoring the voices of all and listening to the call of conscience. In other words, when things don't go your way, don't center your feelings and leave the table. Stay engaged, take a risk and listen, and learn from those who, quote, know how to resist and survive in these times, end quote. We have had amazing progress in the UUA. We've had 5 BIPOC UUA presidents. 3 of them served as co-presidents immediately following the commission's appointment. We had a Black co-moderator whose term ended at GA in 2020, Elandria Williams, who just died in September from complications from illness. The director of congregational life is an African American, Jessica York. And here, I imagine there must be BIPOCs on the staff and in the congregation, or perhaps on the board. In my church, we have an 8th principal team, and I would encourage you, if you don't have one already, to begin considering doing so here in Amarillo. But much work remains on the table. I preached 2 sermons in the past on covenant, and the report says that covenant and commitment, not comfort, should be the binding fabrics of UU congregations. Every church needs a congregational covenant, one that incorporates multiculturalism and navigating conflict. There's a remarkable series on Netflix called Unorthodox. It's about a 19-year-old Orthodox Jewish woman who marries a man in their community in Brooklyn, New York. She flees her community to survive and to find her true self. She lands in Germany and lived there wherever she could find warmth until she encountered a community that welcomed and accepted her. The Orthodox community, meanwhile, sent her husband and his cousin to retrieve her and take her back to Brooklyn. They find her and, using, as the report says, derision, false news, and shoddy research masquerading as truth, words taken from our report, they tried to convince her to go back with them and that she couldn't survive without her community in Brooklyn. She says to them, "Don't take me back." But she also says, more poignantly, "I won't go back." Let us say to each other that we won't go back to a time when white privilege was centering, or the centering value, and that BIPOCs were marginalized. In reality, we still live in that time. BIPOCs are living marginalized, and white privilege is the centering value. But we want to commit to changing that. So, May we do our individual and shared confessional work recommended by the UUA Commission on Institutional Change. Then, let us be about the business of breaking down white supremacy culture within our faith and within this church. May we all develop the mantra, we are not going back. Instead of greeting BIPOCs with blank stares, may we open our eyes wide and create ways to become a new community. Ashe, and may it be so.
At this time in our service, the congregation makes its financial offering. If you have made a pledge or would like to make a contribution, you can simply mail it into our office, or you can make it online. There is a donate button on your YouTube landing page and on our website, uuamarillo.org. On the home page in the upper right corner, you'll find a blue donate button that will take you to a place where you can donate securely through PayPal. If you've made a financial pledge for this year, please keep up your pledge. In October, our Stewardship Committee launched the Fellowship's annual pledge drive. Throughout the month of November, each service will include a Why I Support the Fellowship message. This Sunday's message will be given by Ann Hicks.
I'm Ann Hicks, Chair of the Caring Committee. We have 5 members now. The membership usually ranges from 4 to 8 members. We are charged with supporting the fellowship as a whole in times of personal need. That is death, illness, relocation, or celebrations, such as weddings, births, graduations, and memorial services. The committee provides cards, flowers, personal visits, and coordinates meals when a need is identified. And we are also supposed to keep everybody informed of needs. We take one month at a time. Each person will choose the month that she or he wants. Information comes to me through either the candle lighting or the minister or the board or members. We are always open for new members and fresh ideas.
While we're not meeting in person, our groups are still meeting. First announcement for this afternoon, we're having tailgate number 2. We had so much fun back in October, we're going to have another tailgate party today. Come visit with us. Get your spot in the parking lot, take out your chairs, and enjoy. There will be hamburgers, hot dogs on the grill, just like last time. Please bring your own beverage and side dishes if you like, or just have a couple of burgers and dogs. Come and see us. It was great fun last time. On Mondays at 7:30 p.m., the Nothing Much Buddhist group still meets. They meet via Zoom, and you can check their Facebook page for more specific and detailed information. Our UU Adult Religious Education class meets at 10 a.m. on Sundays using Zoom. Right now, the class is beginning a new UU curriculum, What Moves Us. If you're interested in attending this class, please find the link in each week's newsletter. On Tuesdays, we have a group that meets at 11 a.m. to watch a TED Talk and then discuss the ideas. They meet every Tuesday at 11 a.m. For the next few weeks, they'll be focusing on talks related to the environment and climate change. You can find the link to their meeting in the newsletter. If you need more information, please contact Reverend Nell. Thursday mornings from 9 to 10:30, April has coffee on the patio with anybody that shows up. So please come, bring your own beverage, have a seat on the patio, and keep your distance, but have a good visit. Right now, we're having some perfect weather for that one. We keep mentioning our newsletter, but if you don't yet receive it, that's not much help. To be added to our mailing list, simply go to our website, uuamarillo.org, go to the news section, and click on the subscribe button to sign up. Rick Todd is working to create a virtual choir. If you're interested in participating with him with this project, it's to make a choir over the internet. He will either come to you and help you get it recorded, or he will give you specific instructions on how to record it so that he can then put it together and we can have an Amarillo UU choir with all the ups, downs, and wonderfulness of how we sing together already. Plus, hopefully he'll be able to edit out some of our flatter notes. But if you want to participate, regardless of your ability or proficiency in singing and or playing an instrument, please contact Rick. His contact information is in the online newsletter. If you've been participating in the life of the congregation or simply watching our services online and are now interested in knowing more about the fellowship or becoming a member, please contact us. We have a Path to Membership program that can meet online or in person. Contact office at uuamarillo.org or call our office at 806-355-9351 and leave a message. And now it's time, once again, to thank the folks who are here making this worship service happen. I want to say a special thanks to John, who has been so helpful in meeting me whenever I needed to be met to come and do this, as well as to Larry, who served us for so many months, and now we have Lydia and Dwight, who have joined the team. Thank you, guys. We literally could not do it without you.
It has been great to be with you here at the Amarillo Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Again, I am Reverend Xolani Kacela. I thank you for allowing me to be here. And I thank, of course, my colleague, the Reverend Neil Newton, for the invitation. Take care. Bye-bye.
Please join me in our closing words. May the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come again together. Nicole Presley, the National UU the Vote coordinator, reminds us that we need to remember that we already have all that we need. We are the people who show up time and time again. We are resilient and we are ready. Go in peace.